Supply capability is in blue graph, and installed capacity is on the top. So in percentage wise, what extra capability do we have? That is shown on the right hand side on that graph. So it means the only message here is that we are not short of capacity. So now, what this capacity is doing to us in financial terms? So yes, we moved out of furnace oil and we started using now local coal, imported coal, RLNG, and mostly now our focus is towards hydro and renewables. So your fuel cost component is reducing, which is shown on this lower graph. So but your capacity payment, as you can see on the right, because we have built over capacity beyond our needs, that you will realize at the end of presentation also. So that has a snowballing effect. That is why our electricity tariff is going through the roof. So energy payments reduce, capacity payments are snowballing, and what we need to do, and there is not much difference between the indicative generation capacity expansion plan of 21 or 22. So the scenario stayed the same. Now these are some of the important messages and why we are ending up here. So, now here is our fuel, which will be used if you dispatch our resources at economic merit order. So mostly the energy will be supplied through local coal, or then some imported coal, because those are our base load plants. And it may be a surprise to you, not for the furnace oil, not for the refineries. As you can see, because furnace oil is no more competitive, or that's why the furnace oil utilization has gone down. And same is the case with RLNG. So although we have built quite a bit of power plants, but if you look at the fuel usage, if we dispatch it on economic merit order, they do not get dispatched. So there will be no use of RLNG also. Although we are planning for quite a bit of gas import, maybe for power plant, but as per the current rate structure, because we have other capacity available which is relatively cheaper, so that capacity will not be utilized. But it will be utilized to some extent because of transmission constraints, because of other constraints. But as far as the economic merit order is concerned, unless and until RLNG, though those gas is cheaper, they will not get dispatched. Okay, what's happening here? It is not moving forward. Now, so the overall, if you look at quite a bit of here is the sort of numbers. So what should we do as far as the furnace oil is concerned? Should we shut down our refineries? What will, whatever that furnace oil is produced, to me, so do not hang up on these numbers, because the numbers could be slightly different, but here the overall message That's what we need to understand. So if we are, let's say, 200,000 tons per month furnace oil is produced by local refineries. So what we need to do? If we need to fully utilize it, what should we do? So either we need to bring its cost down so that it stays competitive with the other units so that they can be dispatched. We have, by the way, over 6,000 of megawatt of capacity which is sitting there idle now, which is based on furnace oil, because that's what we built in the last 20-odd years. Only in the last few years we switched to gas power plants and hydro or coal, but predominantly from 95 under 94 policy, primarily we built furnace oil power plants. So now, if we want to reduce our import bill, and we need to process that crude oil ourselves, and instead of bringing up petrol or diesel, finished products. So if let's say some of the plants which are relatively efficient, and if we have their 60%, let's say, plant factor, or then what we can use all that furnace oil, around 22 to 25% of plant factor, we can utilize that oil, but it has to stay competitive with the rest of the fuel mix which we have built recently. Now, this is end with the supply side. And here is the challenge that we have, as a nation, we have created for ourselves. This is about 6 to 7 years of actual data. No number is cooked. Actual, this is from National Power Control Center, actually dispatched data. So what is the significance of this data? If you look at this line, which only in the last 21-22, we touched 8,000 megawatt of capacity, which we call it as a base load. If you look at the previous years, this line is way ahead of 8,000. So it means in winter, these 4 months, November, December, January, and February, for 4 months. And this is our consistent behavior. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 winters are there. They don't lie. So we never crossed 8,000. Only in the last year as a base load at night. So during daytime when the business is open and things, activity starts, so you touch. How much did we touch? 12,300 in the last year. So that 12,000 is your peak demand of winter. But in the previous year, you can see you only went to 10 to 11,000. So now whoever claims in the last 15 odd years that this country has progressed, energy data tells me we didn't do anything. Even if we have done something on the industrial side, they may have gone to captive power plants. But the system energy data tells me that we screwed up. We didn't do a good job. So in '85, when I joined WAPDA, our industrial demand mix at that time was about 40% from the supply side. Right now, we are sitting at early 20s. So country's GDP growth only happens when we have industrial demand, not as our first speaker, Dr. Faizan, I think he mentioned also, so the growth is in the domestic sector. Is it useful? You will realize it's not. So what happened? On summer of 21-22, 22, we supplied 24,564 actual megawatts, which never, ever gone beyond 12,000 in winter. So what is this demand? So last year we काफ़ी तमगे लिए हमने. We touched 30,000. So is it good? To me, this is the worst thing that we could have done to ourselves. So 18,000 megawatt of capacity that we utilize for only short duration, it's all cooling load. So we have not gone to Switzerland or for any vacation during winter for 4 months. The data shows me for all those 4 months, we never went beyond 8,000. So what are we trying to do here? Now, let's say now calculate a little financial impact on that one. So I asked my team, can you tell me how much time did we spend beyond 23,500? Bring it down to 1,000 megawatt. So the number became less than 85 hours. So you built an RLNG plant, although it's a base load plant, we built them as a base load plant, but utilization factor is, you can calculate from 85 hours divided by 8,760. So less than 1%. So you will see how much we have paid as a capacity payment for this plant. I said, bring it 1,000 more. So the number is 435 hours. So 2,000 megawatt of capacity, utilization is this much. So aren't we introducing our circular debt right in the design? So whatever that capacity payment that you will pay, will you ever be able to recover that cost? No. The answer is no. So this is low duration curve. So the 100% of the time we supplied 8,000. So all that energy that we supplied with relatively less percentage and here in peaking, and then we have to see if our supply capability and the mix is according to this low duration curve. So that we have to assess. So let's say for that 1,000 megawatt of, if we could reduce that peaking, and how much avoided cost or how much potential is there to save that money. Because we signed these contracts on take or pay at 66%, because these are base load plants. So $124 million is your capacity payment, 921 is your operating cost. The total is more than $1 billion a year. So this is what we decided, and we are paying for it. So here is our energy data, for the last 10 years. So we started with, because we were deficient in energy capacity and capability. So we only in 2018 we were at par. So whatever the demand was, we were able to supply that in 2018 because we built up new plants. But before that, we never had there was huge load shedding, 18 hours or so to the max. But the important thing here is, what is the supply mix or demand mix, I would say? Over 53% of this energy went to household. Is it adding any value to my GDP? So the use is only that year 143 terawatt hours. Only that year it went to 25. from 21 to 22. Beyond a year, it was less than 22%. And in 80s, we were at 40%. And now, after, this is the age group that I see, maybe few people, maybe 1 or 2 years senior to me, but the workforce, my age group, so we need to blame ourselves. We let it happen. जितना मर्जी हमको CEO बन के बैठ जाए, but throughout this last 35 years or so, we were in the workforce. So we can't blame anybody else. So we are to be blamed. We let it happen. As energy specialist, as whatever power system specialist, whatever we call ourselves. So now, the worst part is, this is 4-month data. It started from 25 and it goes to 34 terawatt hours. I'm not sure why the numbers are not appearing. And this is our summer demand. So the number starts from 64, it goes to 110. So look at the growth pattern. So it means we have, why this summer demand is exponential and our winter demand is only whatever abadi humne jo badhai hai. That's it. That's only the growth rate. So it means there is no industrialization. That the data is from 2011. It doesn't lie. 12 years of information tells me, as a country, we didn't do anything. So no matter what, hukumat or whatever government claims that we did this, but as far as my data shows, this is actual information. So it means we have not done anything on the industrial growth, no ease of doing business, so we did not facilitate businessmen. So the only thing what we did, wo bhi aapko batata hu. So now this is the final number slide. This number, if you look at, if I can maybe, इसमें वो है यार, है तो सही, इस स्क्रीन, हाँ, ग्राफ का ये पोर्शन, this is winter. So 4 months, and this is consistent for the last whatever many years. So this is only last year we touched 8.5 average, 8.5 terawatt hours. So in 4 months, let's say, assume कर लें कि पाकिस्तान में सर्दियाँ ही रहनी थी, गर्मी कभी आई नहीं. So how much business power sector would have done? 8.5 multiplied by 12 months is 1 or 2 terawatt hours. और उसके लिए आपको जो कैपेसिटी लगानी थी, 12 को सप्लाई करने के लिए 15 लगा लेते. So 15,000 megawatt, but how much did we install? 41. To supply what? 41 terawatt hours. So 41 minus 15, 26,000 मेगावाट जो हमने लगाए हैं, कौन सा बिजनेस करने के लिए? 41 टेरावाट आवर्स के लिए, टू सप्लाई दैट कूलिंग लोड. उसका जो प्लांट फैक्टर या लोड फैक्टर बनता है लेस देन 30%. हाउ मच डिड वी इन्वेस्टेड? मैं इसको कहता हूं दीवार ठंडी करने के लिए. और वो हमने कि अपने आप का क्या जुल्म कर लिया कि मुझे 18,000 मेगावाट जो मेरा कूलिंग लोड है, उसकी मेरी जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर है वो मेरा है $84 बिलियन. उसको मैं जनरेशन लगाऊंगा, ट्रांसमिशन लगाऊंगा, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन लगाऊंगा, आपके घर तक पहुंचाऊंगा. आई रिक्वायर 85 विच वी ऑलरेडी स्पेंट बाय द वे. अगर मैं 2000 की इलेक्ट्रिक का शामिल कर लूं, 20,000 मेगावाट इज योर कूलिंग लोड. अब हमने करना क्या है? ऐसे ही चलें दें? तो अगर 17 की कूलिंग की प्रोफाइल को देखें, 21 की कूलिंग प्रोफाइल के देखें, सो योर कंट्रीब्यूशन टुवर्ड्स पीक इज इंक्रीजिंग. So your contribution to peak demand was 72% in 2017 when we didn't have enough generation, but now it is 100%. 12,000 in winter, 28, rather 30,000 in summer. So more than 100%. So the recovery is less than 30%. Not sustainable. दूसरा जुल्म क्या कर रहे हैं हम अपने साथ? ये तो हो गई, ये ब्लू लाइन है जो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी डिमांड की है. अब विंटर की सूरत हाल देख लें. ये हमारी गैस की डिमांड है. तो हम खाना तो गर्मियों में भी खाते हैं. ये गैस की डिमांड है. माशाल्लाह सारे स्पेशली यहाँ बैठे. तो जो सर्दियां ना सानू की हो जाता है. So what this demand is for? So all this piped gas, what we use space heating, वो केड़ा कैम्बर पैंदा है यार इत्थे? So we do not even go to 1 or 2 in Punjab. So it means something else is wrong. So we threw up our ancestors' knowledge of buildings. मैंने पूछा, सेक्रेटरी साहब से भी पूछा पिछले दिनों, मैं गया था एक प्रेजेंटेशन, मैं कहा जी थोड़ा दादा एसी च सौंदा सी? हम में से किसी का दादा एसी में नहीं सोता था. एंड ही माइट हैव एंजॉयड अ बेटर हेल्थ and better living standard in his era. So हमने किया क्या है? हमने अपने बिल्डिंग एनवेलप का सत्यानाश कर दिया. हमने जो बिल्डिंग तो हमारे बड़ों ने कहीं उस वक्त की एनवायरनमेंट के हिसाब से छत थोड़ी ऊंची कर ली, खिड़की रख ली, बरामदा बना लिया, ऊपर रोशनदान रख लिया कि हवा वहां से सर्कुलेट होके निकल जाए. So relatively passive techniques in comforting themselves. सानू अकल आ गई. सानू अकल आ गई. असी की कीता? असी डब्बे बनाए तो ओदे ते ठोके असी. For the last 30 years or so. So that is exactly what we have done. So-called पढ़े लिखे लोग, educated elite, are our architects, all engineering community. So this 20,000 megawatt of cooling load is simply wastage. अगर हम इसमें अपनी कोई कंस्ट्रक्शन प्रैक्टिस बेहतर कर लें. सो असल कल्प्रेट क्या है? आपकी डिमांड जहां से बढ़ रही है, आपका डेटा भी बताता है, हमारा घर है तो अपनी मंजी थल्ले सोटा फेरो. So let's revamp this construction industry. So let's adopt some better construction practices. क्या करें? सर्दियों में घर घुसता हूं तो मुझे कंबल लेने को दिल करता है. सर्दियों में मुझे वार्म चाहिए. गर्मियों में पहले मैं घर को ओवन बनाता हूं, फिर उसको ठंडा करने चल पड़ता हूं. So why can't we do the other way? Why can't we have a little better insulation material used in our construction so that environmental impact is relatively less? So we do not need that much of energy to comfort ourselves. So तवज्जो कहाँ करें? हम सप्लाई साइड को, ये सब डिमांड आ गई है, आपने भी दिखाया जी 9% पता नहीं कितनी बढ़ जाएगी. दुनिया एनर्जी एफिशिएंट के चक्कर में पड़ी हुई है. So I lived in Canada for 23 odd years, 5 years in States. The thing is, वो इंसेंटिव प्रोग्राम डिजाइन कर रहे हैं. I remember because I'm a power sector guy. अभी टीचिंग में तो 6-7 साल हुए, but basically I'm an industry person. वहाँ 2006 में कनाडा में ओंटारियो में the demand was 27,000 megawatt. Now it is not even go beyond 22,000. So उन्होंने 40,000, अभी मेरे अपने आप को मैं लिंक बता देता हूँ, $40,000 they are giving for free कि भी आप इंटरेस्ट फ्री लोन ले लो, अपने घर को और एफिशिएंट कर लो. So हमारी पता नहीं तवज्जो किधर है, हम क्या क्या सोच रहे हैं. हमारी फोरकास्ट भी सारी इस पे बेस्ड है कि जी क्योंकि आ जानी है डिमांड. पर क्यों आ जानी है? इस पे भी गौर करें. इज इट रियली हेल्पिंग द कंट्री और इट्स डैमेजिंग द कंट्री? तो हमें इस बात को सोचना है. तो सारे अपने सौदा बेचने के चक्कर च ना पईए. सो लेट्स सी इफ द डिमांड इज रियल. सो आपने क्या करना है, बिल्डिंग एनवेलप को ठीक करना है. अभी भी एग्जिस्टिंग घरों को भी आप ठीक कर सकते हैं. देर आर इस पे एक सेपरेट रिसर्च है, अलग टॉपिक है. सो लाइटर मटेरियल कर लें, एफिशिएंट अप्लायंसेस छोटा पार्ट है. वाटर का रीयूज को आप करें और घर की ओरिएंटेशन आप ठीक कर लें. सिर्फ ओरिएंटेशन ठीक कर दें तो 30 to 40% एनर्जी सेव हो जाती है. हमारे यहाँ बड़ी अकल आ गई है, हमारे DHAs एंड बैरियर टाउन्स एंड व्हाट नॉट. हम 4 मरले का एक प्लाट है जो जो कमर्शियल प्लाट है, वो ये इधर से भी बंद है, इधर से भी बंद है, पीछे से भी बंद है. सामने शीशा ला दो, उत्ते धुप ला दो. You are 100% dependent on air conditioning. Even during winter, you can't even breathe. So हमारी जो बिल्डिंग कटिंग है, उसकी जो ओरिएंटेशन है, उधर तवज्जो करें. तो हमें जो जियोथर्मल हमारे पाँव के नीचे 15-20 फुट नीचे हमारा जो पानी है, मैं तो गांव से तो अलग रखने वाला आदमी हूँ. सो मुझे पता है जो हमारा नलका होता था वो सर्दियों में वो बड़ा कह रहे थे ये गर्म पानी देता है. हालांकि वो सिंपल, वो नीचे से वाटर, आपका एनवायरनमेंट का टेम्परेचर वो कम है आपका बॉडी टेम्परेचर से, आप बड़ा निग्गा है यार, बड़ा मज़ा आता है नहाने का. बट इन समर बिकॉज द इन्वायरमेंट इज रियली हार्ड, सो व्हेन यू गो देयर तो आपको ठुठरते थे आप नहाते हुए. सो दैट वी कैन यूज दैट एनर्जी टू कूल आवर हाउसेस. बाकी बहुत सारी बातें हैं. सो आई हैव बीन प्रेजेंटिंग सम ऑफ दीज थिंग्स. ईच जो मैंने ऊपर जो टाइटल लिखा है उसके लिए अलग प्रेजेंटेशन है. तो दैट्स इज फॉर अनदर सम, बट बेसिक मैसेज फॉर दिस फॉर टुडेज इज कि अपने कूलिंग लोड को हमें कम करना है. वो हम टारगेट रख लें को 1000 मेगावाट आधे साल में या 2000 करना है, बिकॉज दैट इज नॉट सस्टेनेबल. हम कितना डॉलर जला के अपनी दीवार ठंडी करेंगे, कब तक कर सकते हैं? तो हमें वहां से बाज आना है. सो हमें बड़े इसमें एक बड़ी लंबी कहानी है ये रिफॉर्म्स के लिए कि हमने नेशनल एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल, ये जितने हमारे हर बोर्ड, आई डोंट लाइक दीज बोर्ड्स एट ऑल, कि भी आप डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के थोड़ा सा आपने किया तो 10 बंदा 12 बंदे नहीं लभते बोर्ड ले. सो आपको अंदाजा हो सकता है कि भी पावर सेक्टर में अभी कितने बोर्ड हो गए. अदारा पहले से टूट तोड़ के हमने वापडा के 15 हिस्से 20 कर दिए. वहाँ तो अथॉरिटी होती थी 3 मेंबर्स की और एक चेयरमैन. अब यहाँ एक अदारे में 12-12, 15-15 बंदे घुसे हुए. अब सो व्हाट इज द यूज? और उनमें वो कैपेबिलिटी भी नहीं है, वो सेक्टर का नॉलेज ही नहीं है. सो द होल थिंग वी हैव डन इट रॉन्ग. तो हमें उनको कुछ कैसे करना है. फिर वो एक यूनिफाइड पावर एंड ऑल रेगुलेटरी एजेंसी होनी चाहिए, नेपरा या ओगरा. सॉरी अगर मेरी रिकमेंडेशन किसी को बुरी लगे, बट इसके अलावा चारा नहीं है. अपनी अपनी ढोल बजाने में गल नहीं बननी. इंटीग्रेटेड अप्रोच चाहिए. हमें क्या करना है, और फिर जो हमारी पॉलिटिकल इंटरवेंशंस बहुत सारी अदारों में होती है, इसको नेचुरली कंट्रोल करना है. वो जो कंपेटिटिव ट्रेडिंग एंड बायलैटरल मार्केट है उसको इन्हांस. सो ये मैंने जो लफ्ज़ लिखा है इंटीग्रेटेड रिसोर्स प्लानिंग विच इंक्लूड्स फ्यूल आल्सो. सो इफ लेट्स से 27 to 30% अगर पावर सेक्टर में ये इस्तेमाल एनर्जी हो रही है तो उसके लिए आपको इंटीग्रेटेड रिसोर्स प्लानिंग चाहिए. और फिर इस अदारे को ओवरऑल एक इंटीग्रेटेड सिस्टम ऑपरेटर, इंडिपेंडेंट सिस्टम ऑपरेटर होता है. दुनिया में ये मॉडल है. अगर आपने वापडा को अनबंडल किया, सो देयर आर वेज टू हैंडल थिंग्स, प्रूवन मॉडल्स हैं, उनकी तरफ जाना होगा. तो अभी जो फ्यूचर के चैलेंजेस हैं इंडस्ट्री के या यूटिलिटी इंडस्ट्री के, वो तो इनॉर्मस है. तो उनमें बहुत सारी हमें अकल करनी पड़ेगी कि ये जो यूटिलिटी लैंडस्केप है, ये जो तब्दीली आ रही है, इसको कैसे हैंडल करना है. आर ई रिच ऑपरेशनल चैलेंजेस के साथ आएंगे, ई मोबिलिटी, बैटरी स्टोरेज, डिमांड साइड की जो चेंजेस आ रही हैं इसको कैसे हैंडल करना है. सो देयर आर सेशंस शुड बी हेल्ड ऑन ईच ऑफ दीज सब्जेक्ट्स. थैंक यू वेरी मच. जी, अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है तो अदरवाइज आई विल स्टेप डाउन.
फ्री यूनिट खत्म, ठीक है ना. वो तो आपने नहीं जिक्र किया कि इसको किस तरह से कंट्रोल किया जा सकता है. जिनको फ्री बिजली मिलती है वो एसी चल रहे हैं दिन रात, तो इसके लाइन लॉसेस कंट्रोल किए जाएं और मीटरिंग प्राइवेटाइज की जाए तो आधा मसला हल हो जाएगा. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
जी, मैं आपको थोड़ा पर्सपेक्टिव दे दूं. यह है एक ऑपरेशनल, आप गवर्नेंस की बात कर रहे हैं. सो पावर सेक्टर में ये हो रहा है. सो द ओवरऑल अगर आप 100 रुपीज़ आपने बिलिंग की उसकी, सो जो रिकवरी आती है टोटल वो आती है अराउंड 89%. सो 11 रुपये समझ ले बिलिंग से ज़ाया हो गए, जो बिल भी नहीं अदा हुए. कुछ लॉसेस की बात हुई, उसका टोटल इम्पैक्ट है 150 to 170 बिलियन रुपीस अ ईयर. लेकिन यहां जो मैंने बात प्रेजेंट की है 2018 में, अगर मेरा ग्राफ वाला देखें 18, 19, 20, वी सोल्ड द सेम एनर्जी of 19, 21, 21, these were the numbers. The capacity payment difference was 450 billion. Energy sold was the same. So मैं हुण वो 170-50 नूं रोवां पहले कि 450 नूं रोवां. So the point here is, so we need to focus. Yes, that is an area. आप इंप्रूवमेंट कर लेंगे, गवर्नेंस इंप्रूव कर लेंगे, 2%, 3% आप गेन ले लेंगे, 20-25 बिलियन बचा लेंगे. बट बाय डिफॉल्ट में जो हमने इंट्रोड्यूस कर दी कैपेसिटी, वो जो हमने दीवारें ठंडी करने के चक्कर में वो जो 450 या 600 बिलियन ऐड कर दिए, उसका फिक्र करना है हमें पहले. थैंक यू जी.
सर, वन क्वेश्चन फॉर यू सर.
जी,
अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
जी वालेकुम.
सर, मेरा नाम उमर ताहिर है, मैं मिडिल ईस्ट में हंटिंग में जॉब कर रहा हूँ. एंड ग्रेट प्रेजेंटेशन, आपने जियो थर्मल को जैसे लेमैन में डिफाइन किया है, वेरी नाइस. सो वांटेड टू आस्क, इन पाकिस्तान देयर इज ह्यूज पोटेंशियल. मैं करंटली ग्लोबली जियो थर्मल एप्लीकेशंस में काम कर रहा हूँ. तो कूलिंग के लिए सऊदी अरेबिया इवन ये जो डेजर्ट के अंदर लाइन प्रोजेक्ट है उसको वो जियो थर्मल के साथ पावर और कूलिंग का प्रोजेक्ट कर रहे हैं. सो आर यू अवेयर इफ देयर इज a feasibility study has been done in Pakistan, old wells जो हैं हमारे सिंध में और पूरे पाकिस्तान में, they can be repurposed for geothermal as well. तो again collaboration की ज़रूरत है, synergy की ज़रूरत है. लेकिन on geothermal itself, are you aware of any progress or studies or projects which are being done?
जैसे अभी सुबह मिनिस्टर साहब ने, आई विश ही वुड हैव बीन हियर, वो भी जियोथर्मल की थोड़ी बात कर रहे थे बलूचिस्तान में. यस, वी हैव नॉट, देयर आर सो मैनी पोटेंशियल्स इन दिस कंट्री, देयर आर अनटैप्ड. यस, वी नीड टू, स्पेशली आपके अपने घर के नीचे पोटेंशियल है, वी आर नॉट इवन टैपिंग दैट. सो हम तो यहाँ से इंडिविजुअल से वहाँ काम शुरू करें कि वी शुड स्टार्ट डेवलपिंग पैसिव हाउसिंग, स्टार्टेड यूजिंग आवर ओन potential which is underneath your own house's ground. So लेकिन अगेन हम बात कर रहे हैं अगेन सप्लाई साइड की. मैं सप्लाई के तो बहुत ऑप्शंस है. अभी रिन्यूएबल, अल्लाह मियां दा सूरज बड़े कम आ रहा है. बट द थिंग इज, हमें पहले जो डिमांड आ रही है, मेरा फोकस इस वक्त या आज की प्रेजेंटेशन का ये है कि सप्लाई के बहुत ऑप्शंस है, उसको और एक्सप्लोर किया जा सकता है. लेकिन वो जो डिमांड आ रही है जो मेरे किसी काम की नहीं, जो कि मैं इंपोर्ट करके डॉलर जला के दीवार ठंडी करके लम्मी पा के सौ जाता. सो दैट 20,000 मेगावाट इज कंसर्निंग फॉर मी. तो मुझे उसको दुरुस्त करना है, तो वो उसको मुझे डाइवर्ट करना है किसी और जगह. मैं उसका बेहतर यूज़ करूं ताकि मेरे मुल्क की जीडीपी ग्रोथ बेहतर हो। मैं वो जो वेस्टफुल एनर्जी का यूज़ है उसको कर्टेल करने की फ़िक्र में हूं। ठीक हो गया जी। बाकी जनरेशन पोटेंशियल हाइड्रो का हम कहते हैं कि जी ऊपर तो 100,000 या 60,000 50,000, यस दैट पोटेंशियल इज देयर। हम उसको कन्वर्ट करके ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन बना सकते हैं। और देयर आर मैनी वेज ऑफ सप्लाई साइड के बहुत दुनिया है, ठीक है, और इफेक्टिव तरीके से किया जा सकता है। लेकिन पहले हमें करना है कि वो मैं इंतज़ाम तब करूं अगर उसका मैंने इस्तेमाल ठीक करना है। अगर मैं उसका इस्तेमाल गलत करना है, आई शुडंट बी इवन डेवलपिंग दैट रिसोर्स, अगर मैंने उसको ज़ाया ही करना। थैंक यू जी।
Thank you, Dr. Fayaz, for your excellent analysis of recorded versus computed power demand and your conclusions for utilizing untapped opportunities. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to thank the representatives from the Ministry of Energy Petroleum Division and other representatives from other ministries who have a very strong presence here. Thank you very much for being there. Now, since Pakistan is is grappling with demand-supply disequilibrium, it is important that we diversify into untapped sectors. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Farooq Dastagir, Executive Director, OGDCL, and he will be talking on the subject of Pakistan's offshore potential. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Farooq Dastagir.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. This presentation is co-hosted by OGDC and DGPC. The first part will be focusing on the offshore potential, and the second part will be focusing on the bidding round, which is coming this year for offshore. I start the presentation by saying that offshore is Pakistan's biggest hope and biggest prize. You have seen a couple of presentations where you have seen a lot of issues being discussed. They are there in practical life, but what we're presenting here is progress, hope, and the future of Pakistan. So let me put a quote here that, the future of any nation, the success of any nation is driven by certain events in their course of history. Offshore discovery will be a big event for Pakistan after nuclear test, that will change the whole landscape of energy of Pakistan. So I bring you the offshore Pakistan potential. This initiative has been taken for last couple of months through Ministry of Petroleum, DGPC, OGDCL, PPL, Madi Petroleum, and GHPL. So it's a collective initiative from all the companies, and what we believe that this initiative has to be taken by national operators and the government to start with, to bring the investors and to bring the foreign direct investment in Pakistan for offshore initiative. So I'll start my presentation from here. So this is the Pakistan biggest opportunity and the biggest prize. If we are able to deliver this to Pakistan in next 5 years, it will change the landscape of energy of Pakistan. Just to give you the flavor what energy really means here. So it has been presented in different presentation that we are using a lot of domestic consumption of energy, and we are not putting a lot of energy on industry side. Just to give you some numbers, our current energy cost for industry is 9 to 12%, and if you bring the imported energy, that will take you to 15 to 18% of industrial cost of energy. That will not make us competitive in the global market. So not only bring the energy from outside will impact the foreign exchange, but it will also impact the cost of making product in Pakistan. So why is important now? So the question is why we think that this is possible now after a couple of years of exploration. The offshore has 30-40 years of exploration history. We will show you through the presentation, but why now? So the point is that if you see the oil prices which dropped in 2014 and it picked up in 2021, in all the international operators, they are willing to invest their investment in the frontier basins around the world. And Pakistan being a frontier basin will bring the investment opportunity to Pakistan. Examples from Guyana, Suriname, and Namibia, for last 10 years, the effort from the government and focus exploration has paid off, and they are able to have discoveries in a couple of years. 2015 saw the Guyana discovery. Last year, Namibia discoveries were there. So there's a big potential offshore. All the big operators in the world, which are national operators and international operators, they are focusing now their exploration, the conventional oil and gas exploration in deep waters, because they want to run bigger projects. And a lot of onshore exploration has been matured through the time. So what we are doing for the last couple of months, we have put the efforts together to look at the data we have for offshore. We have put it together, strategy for the studies. We have extended our focus to the engagement of stakeholders internally and externally, so that we can have available investors lined up once we go in the bidding this year. We have focused on the investment part as well, so we are trying to bring a commercial partner in the process, so that once we go in the bidding, we have enough investors available to help us to get the international operators in. The recent example, we did OTC this month in Houston, where the government was there, the leadership was there, minister was there, and the whole MDs of national oil companies and the technical directors were there to engage with the international operators in Houston. And it was a good initiation and efforts to put together, and it was a good feedback from all the operators around the world that they know that there's something on the map where they can invest in the future. So just to give you some numbers, and what is really important for us is that government is committed to bring foreign investment for offshore, and they have shown their presence with all the meetings and traveling overseas. Just to give you a number, what is happening in Pakistan, we have a 9% decline in gas production and about 7 to 8% decline in oil production, which means in 10 years' time, it will be too late in the game to do anything. So next 5 years for Pakistan is very important to focus on any exploration, high-intensive capex investment in anywhere, any part of the basin. Just to give you what offshore look like, so Pakistan offshore is divided into two major basins. One is Makran Basin offshore Balochistan, and one is called Indus Basin. Our first phase of exploration is focused on Indus Basin. The area of Indus Basin is about 154,000 square kilometers. It has a multi-TCF gas potential, and which means that if the gas is found, it will be somewhere around 10 to 40 TCF of gas volume, which will be sizable to really develop these fields. Just to give you an idea what TCF means here, for the last 50 years of exploration in Pakistan onshore, we have discovered 60 TCF of gas. We have produced 40 TCF of gas till to date, and 20 TCF is left as a reserve, which will last for the next 10 to 15 years. And if you look at the oil numbers, we have discovered 1.5 billion barrel of oil, and we have produced 1.2 billion barrel of oil, and we are left with 300 million barrel of oil reserve, which also will last for the next 8 to 10 years. So what is happening in onshore and why we are looking for opportunities offshore? The onshore basins of Pakistan, which is mainly Badin, Kohat, Potohar, and Central Indus Basin, these all fields are declining. They are mature basins. It's very difficult to find more oil or gas. The cost of doing business is increasing. The cost of finding oil is increasing. So a lot of maturity is there, and it's getting difficult for the companies, especially NOCs, which represent the 75% of the landscape, to bring the success out of it. The offshore is divided into 3 zones. One is we call shallow, which is up to 200 meters of water depth. The deep is 200 to 1,000 meter, and the ultra deep is anything above 1,000 meters water depth. The PSA we have, which is called Production Sharing Agreement for the offshore, is flexible now. It's recently approved by the government, and we also are putting a flexible bidding strategy, which the DGPC will present in his slides after this. And we also offering some advantage for first movers in the offshore. So to invest in exploration, oil and gas, you need to have a love for geology. Pakistan offshore offers 4 major plays. The play means that the way to find oil is called play. In a lot of basins around the world, normally there are 2 or 3 plays, but we have a basin which offers 4 plays, which ranges from shelf-rich carbonates, Miocene sand from deltaic to channel levee system turbidites, and deep water carbonate buildups, which we drilled in 2019, which was called Kekara. If you see the numbers, the major events lies between Miocene and Pliocene of geological ages, and we believe this in around the world, all the major basins discovers hydrocarbons are sitting in Miocene plays. It's an analog. Just to give the flavor, how many wells have been drilled offshore, this chart shows you 2 colors, light and dark blue. The dark blue means deep water, anything above 1,000 meters of water depth, and light blue means that there are shallow waters. The exploration start offshore in 60s. We drilled 3 wells. They are called creeks, Dabo creeks, Patani creeks, and all that. And we didn't have any hydrocarbon discoveries. We did a lot of 2D surveys through 60s to 90s, which are indicated here. We drilled Indus Marine wells in 70s. There were no discoveries. In 1985, OGDC drilled a well which is called Park Canyon well, which flowed 3.7 million of gas, which is a direct indication of hydrocarbon presence in offshore Pakistan, which gave us a focus that there is a true potential offshore Pakistan. And we given numbers, we have only drilled 14 wells offshore Indus. Out of 14, 11 are shallow waters and 3 are deep waters. Statistically around the world, if you look at any basins where discoveries happen, you need minimum 15 to 30 wells to test any play concept here. And the point here is that once we move for last couple of 20 years, we have only drilled 4 wells. And there was a big hype going on around Kekara well, which happened in 2019, where we thought that we found gas in offshore, but it was unsuccessful. So what we are looking at is that it's an unassessed, untapped basin, which is offshore Pakistan, still has a lot of potential to offer. And we believe that there's a lot of potential left. Therefore, we are supporting government of Pakistan through NOCs and bringing investors to initiate the offshore exploration. Just to give you how the offshore exploration will look like, this is a seismic section going from onshore to the offshore area. There are 2 sections. One is schematic and the bottom and top is seismic section. The numbers are placed 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the play concepts we have. The first 3 plays, which are very close to the shallow waters and deep water, we will be targeting that in the first phase, and the second phase we will go in the deep water. Just to give an idea of what it looks like, so the water depth from the left side going to right side is starting from the shelf and going to deep water. The deepest depth here is 2,000 meter water column, which is still drillable around the world. The deepest well which have been drilled around the world had 3,000 meter of water column, and it was drilled in the Gulf of Mexico. So just to give you the flavor how it looks like, because a lot of people have not seen the seismic section, and they always ask how it looks like. So this is the potential we have. We believe that there's still a lot of potential left in offshore Pakistan, and that's why we are taking an initiative to move to initiate the process. So a lot of people, because when you go to investors, they ask, what's the plan? So we have put a plan. This is an integrated plan by all the NOCs, helped by the government as well. We are as the first at identify phase. We will, once we get the blocks, end of the year, we'll do the assessment. We'll select one of the best options to drill, and the define phase will start drilling the wells. That will take at least 3 years from now if we start today. This time we are putting a campaign-based approach, which means that we have to drill 3 wells to statistically test the play concept. And the number we are looking at is around $380 million for next 5 years. In this case, what we are saying that the national oil companies will be participating as a joint venture or individual with 50% or more stakes, and they will invite all the major players. Recently in OTC, the company has met and all the players went to there. They met Shell office, and the Shell was, they said that they will be interested to come and participate in the assessment of offshore. And we're also talking to other companies around the world to bring super majors as a preferred partner for this exploration. So just to give you a flavor, because once you have a plan, then it's easy to execute. We have spent a couple of months now, over the last couple of months, we have focused to bring a plan together to show to investors that how it's possible. So I think the next part will be presented by DGPC. I will request Mr. Kashif Ali to please come on the stage. Thank you.
Just one question.
Question will be answered at the end. Okay, please. Ji. No, it was tested. So when we drill the well in offshore, we first test the wells. So 3.7 million for offshore is very small volume to develop it. So, but the presence is been established so that the gas presence is offshore, but we need at least about 2 TCF of gas reserve to develop anything offshore. Just to give you an idea of what offshore development means here, it will take at least $1 billion for a smallest project we will run. For the bigger project, it will cost us $10 billion. So it's a mega project. The first part we have shown is the exploration phase. Kashif Ali, thank you.
Thank you, Sagir. Thank you, PIP, for inviting us. We have the second largest delta in the world, but unfortunately, no discovery has been made, as Farooq has mentioned. There was only one discovery which was not commercial, which was made by OGDCL way back in 1985. Later exploration has been carried out in our offshore area. Only 18 wells has been drilled, and most of the wells were the technical failures. There was a less focus on offshore area. If you can see, the last bid round was held in year 2007. After the promulgation of the policy 2012, there was a need to finalize the model production sharing agreement and to finalize the offshore rules. Now both documents has been finalized and necessary approvals has been taken from the cabinet committee and ratified by the cabinet. We have also identified 24 offshore blocks. The approvals from the Ministry of Defense has been taken in advance. Because of the risk factor, we are offering very lucrative incentives, which are the best in the region, maybe one of the best in the world. What we are offering, the gas price from $7 to $9 per MMBTU. We are also giving the bonanza for $1 per MMBTU for first 3 discoveries. So our system is based on the production sharing model. The profit oil and profit gas is up to 95%. The cost recovery is very attractive, which is 85%. We are also offering the holiday on royalty for 4 years. There is no ring fence in our offshore area. The government gives the guarantee to E&P companies to buy the gas. Even companies are free to sell to third parties subject to the approval from government. In offshore rules, we have minimized the regulatory approvals, and we are shifting from the regulation to compliance now. If you compare our rules with 2003 rules, we have relaxed 18 rules where the approval for the regulation was required. It is pertinent to mention here that this time we are also engaging our marketing companies for to find the potential investors in our offshore area. So this is the procedure for the ground of exploration block. It can be offered to any strategic partner on G2G basis, and any interested company can come and participate in the bid round, and they can win on the basis of the minimum work program. We have the best data center in the world. So all the data can be accessed online also. Thank you. Any question?
Yes, Mr. Ali, please. Yeah.
You have introduced a new concept based on the offshore, which is the production sharing agreement. So there's going to be cost recovery, and you have mentioned up to 85%. So this is going to be a major difference from the concessionary agreements, which has been a tradition in Pakistan. Is this going to be only applied for the offshore blocks, or is there any consideration to consider the onshore for production sharing agreements and cost recovery mechanism?
So at present, this is only for the offshore area. If companies are interested, we can look into this for the possibilities on the onshore area as well.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. Good presentation.
So I think if there's no more questions, so the only point we're making is Pakistan still have a lot of hope, and we are very positive that we will be able to deliver this business in a couple of years. So just wait for the event. I think we are very positive that Pakistan will be able to discover offshore oil and gas, and we are working hard on this one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for a very pertinent presentation on offshore potential, in which you have underscored the importance of foreign direct investment, as well as offerings and country entry options. Now, if I'm not wrong, Pakistan has 6 refining companies that operate with a total refining capacity of 20.34 million metric tons. Our next speaker is Mr. Mohammad Adil Khattak, CEO, Attak Refinery, and he will take on a topic of Pakistan's refinery sector, challenges and opportunities. Put your hands together for Mr. Adil Khattak.
Thank you. Thank you to PIP for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts and whatever I know about refining business in Pakistan. So I'll be basically covering, to begin with, the world refining overview, then followed by general Pakistan energy scenario, and then coming to the refining sector, challenges and opportunities we have, and finally to conclude in the way forward. This is just to show that over the last 3 decades, how things are as far as the proven oil reserves are concerned globally. So if you look at that, in year 2000, Middle East had the major share, and on the rightmost, still it has the major share, though the percentage may be varied a little bit. On the interesting part, or the major change you can see is on the South and Central America. When 30 years back, it was only 7%, and it has grown up. And on the North American side, which means Canada and US, it has, I think, remained almost the same. A little bit it has gone down. And the purple color is basically for Commonwealth of, basically covers Central Asian and Russia. So that also remains almost, that has grown a little bit. An interesting part is that Asia and Pacific was 2.9% 30 years back, and it's almost, I think it has reduced a little bit. And Europe was only 1.6%, I think it's still a little around that area. So now we would compare to the refining capacity in the next slides, so that will come up with some interesting facts. Like you can see, Asia Pacific was less than 3% oil reserves, but the refining capacity is the highest, 30 million barrels daily. On the other side, Europe had oil reserves less than 1%, but the refining capacity is almost 24 million barrels. In North America, it has remained static over the last 3 decades. And overall, even worldwide, there not has been much increase in the refining capacity. So it has gone up from 94 to 101 million barrels per day. Now coming to the Pakistan refining sector, as you can see, we have 5 refineries in Pakistan, 3 of which are located in Karachi area on the coastal side, and Parco is mid-country, and Attic refinery is in the north, the only refinery in the north. Out of these, Attic refinery is processing 100% local indigenous crude oil. Almost all of it is coming from either Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, now currently the major share is coming from there, and some from the Port-Ohar region. And the other refineries are mainly based on imported crude oil. This just shows the supply chain. So like 3 million tons is the local indigenous crude oil production, the rest is being imported. And then some of the local gas associated gas goes to the domestic sector or the fertilizer sector. And of course, various products are being made by the refineries, jet fuel and HSD and normal motor gasoline, etc. And we have a crude pipeline from the south up to Parco, and we also have product pipelines going from the port areas up to Machike. And so I'll be touching upon various products in the coming slides. Importance of the refining sector. It provides about 55% of total annual demand of petroleum products. So 30% of motor gasoline is locally produced and almost 50% or more is HSD. Jet fuel, almost 100% in recently was produced by the local refineries. I think last year we have had some imports too. And of course, so like by import substitution, we are saving about $1 billion per annum. And the local crude production has sort of remained stagnant. In fact, rather it has gone down over the last 3 years. And currently it's in the range of about 70,000 barrels per day. So it provides almost 100,000 direct and indirect employment opportunities, substantial contribution to national exchequer. The figures I have on the taxes paid is more than 100 billion rupees, excluding Parco, because I couldn't get figures for Parco refinery. So overall, it must be in the range of 150 billion rupees. And of course, Mr. Zaidi has well explained the constraints we have at the ports. So this is also, the local refineries are helping in managing the port infrastructure, because if we were not there, then all the products would have had to be imported, and this is simply unmanageable. So a little bit about the local refineries we have. So Parco was established in the year 2000, and they've been doing regularly upgrades, and their latest upgrade was in 2020. It's the only refinery which is mild conversion, capacity is 120,000 barrels. ARL also has been doing regularly upgrades of the refinery. The latest was in 2016-17, but it still remains to be, largely speaking, overall still a hydroskimming refinery, capacity is 53,400. Then National Refinery has also been regularly upgraded, and it's the only refinery which has a lube refinery as well. Capacity is overall 70,000 barrels. Then PRL is also hydroskimming, capacity 50,000 barrels, established in 1962. Then the Synergico, they have 2. The oldest one came on stream in 2004 with a capacity of about 30,000 barrels per day. And the later one came in 2015, but all the 2 refineries are also hydroskimming of Synergico. So the total capacity is 450,000, but as Mr. Zaidi very well explained, on paper the capacity is 19 million tons per day, but the actual operational or whatever the current productivity is maybe around 11 to 12 million tons per annum, and there are various factors for that. This simply shows the indigenous crude oil production. It reached its peak, I think, somewhere in 2015, and then there was a little bit constant stability, and then 2019 onwards is going down. So Pakistan is a net importer of crude as well as petroleum products. Total production or consumption in last year was 23.7 million tons. It's currently down from that figure. And production from indigenous crude was 3 million tons. Balance is 22.17, either in the shape of crude or products was imported or is being imported. So overall, if you take into account crude as well as products, so only about 13% of total demand is met through indigenous oil resources. This basically shows the gap between demand and supply of various products. So mogas, the gap is the largest. As I mentioned earlier, almost 30% is produced locally by local refineries, 70% is imported. On diesel, again, the gap is quite large, but still lower as compared to motor gasoline, as we are producing about the capacity is to produce 60%, but currently we're producing 50% of the demand locally, and balance is imported. Fuel oil, this graph is only covering up to last year, 2022. Currently there is I would say, negative growth, negative gap, because only recently both PRL and PARCO, they have exported furnace oil rather than being imported. Price mechanism. So currently the refineries are importing crude oil as per the requirement at the prevailing international prices. This is completely a deregulated process. The product prices are based on import parity basis, approved by the government and announced by OGRA on a fortnightly basis. Ex-refinery price of petrol and diesel is based on Arab Gulf Platts, average for the number of days plus actual premium and incidental cost of PSO. Furnace oil, asphalt and products are deregulated. What are the challenges we are facing? Basically, as can you understand, refinery is a very highly capital intensive projects and a low return on equity. If I base on my figure on the last say 20 years, the payback has not been more than 1 to 2%. And a consistent need of upgradation. As the specifications keeps changing, so there is continued need of upgradation. So we went from leaded gasoline to unleaded and Euro 2 to Euro 3, and now you're aiming at Euro 5. So there always has been a need for upgradation of the refineries. And limited availability of domestic crude, so you have to base your large projects on imported crude oil. The present policy we have on the refining and downstream sector was approved in 1997. And of course, I'll be touching more on the refining policy in the coming slides. And of course, last but not the least, the volatility of pricing both products and crude is a big challenge. So at times, refining margins even go negative. The pricing mechanism, the way it has changed over the last 2 to 3 decades, like there was up to 1988, the refineries were operating on fixed return of around 18%. Then in up to 2002, it was based on import parity pricing formula was applicable with capping of 10 to 40. So if you made a profit of less than 10%, the government would compensate the refinery. And if the profits are more than 40%, then the refinery was supposed to return that amount to the government of Pakistan. This arrangement worked till 2002. In 2000, petroleum policy midway somewhere in 1990, I can see, here it is, 1994, a new policy came up only for new refineries. And this basically enabled PARCO to come up. And they ensured 25% return for 8 years. And then the current policy came up in July 2002, which basically came up with an idea of deemed duty. And initially, the refineries were entitled to 10% of HSD and 6% of kerosene, LDO, and JP. Later on, this tariff protection was withdrawn on kerosene, LDO, and JP4, it was abolished. And currently, tariff protection HSD was reduced from, then later on, it was reduced from 10% to 7.5%, which is equivalent to only 2% on overall production slate. So in a way, the government support has been declining over the years to the refining sector. As you may have heard, it was all over in the news also, that currently we are facing a big challenge on the diminishing demand of furnace oil. So also in the presentation on power sector, this issue was mentioned. Currently the refineries, as I mentioned in my early slide on the refineries, almost all the refineries are hydroskimming refineries. So they have no choice but to produce furnace oil. In some cases, it's as high as 40% of their total yield. And furnace oil export for refineries, especially situated inland, is not economically feasible. Even the two exports recently made were at a much loss, I would say, or a cost to the refineries. So refineries produce 60% of country's petroleum products, and their closure, if the refineries were forced to close down because of this factor, for non-upliftment of furnace oil, at least in the last 2-3 years, we have been facing this kind of a situation when we were almost close to shut down because of no ullage available, or very low or nil upliftment of furnace oil. So this would cost refineries not only $1 billion annually, but also would be presenting a big challenge how to get or how to export the local crude available here. Now, of course, all of us agree that there is a need to go for higher conversion refineries to reduce or totally eliminate furnace oil. But it can't be done overnight. You need some time to do that, and you need a policy which should enable the refineries to go for these projects. Another issue which is not really recent because it has been there for ages, but in the last year or so, the amount of smuggling from Iran has really, there has been a phenomenal growth in this smuggling, mainly because of the gap, because in Iran, some of the products are subsidized by the government, and the prices have gone really up in Pakistan. So the temptation for smuggling is so high that almost it's now 50% of the local refinery production in case of HSD. So all the refineries are currently facing a big challenge how to sell whatever they're producing. And again, at times it results in lower throughput of the refineries. And I'm sure, as Masood Saab mentioned, they have taken it up with the government agencies. I recall an interesting story from long time back. We also faced a similar situation maybe 20-25 years back. And at that time, I hired an ex-ISI officer who has served in Balochistan for a long time to carry out a study on smuggling of Iran. And he came up with beautiful maps showing all the smuggling routes and whoever were involved at the political level, at the border, law enforcement agencies, at whatever level. And I took that study to the then Interior Minister, who was also a retired general, and he assured me that within a fortnight or so, all the problem would be resolved. So I kept waiting for anything to happen. 15 days, 1 month passed, and I took an appointment and called on the Secretary Interior at that time. And I told him, look, you see, we have all the details available, and why can't you stop it? And he said, Khatak Saab, aap bahut saada aadmi ho. Ye kaun band karega? Everyone from the bottom to the top is involved in this business. So simply forget about it. So I hope things would be better handled this time. But this is a serious challenge to us right now. Okay, as I mentioned, the current refinery policy came up in 1997. So probably 25 years have elapsed since then. In the recent years, the focus is being shifted to sustainability of the refineries based on techno-commercial stability, reliability, quality, and standard, etc., etc. Now, we have been in discussion with the government now for more than 3 years across the political divide. And somehow, it's stuck up somewhere. The refinery policy is stuck up somewhere. Only recently, they approved the greenfield refineries part of it, basically to attract foreign investment. But the existing refineries are still there, waiting for the refinery policy to come up. And meanwhile, almost all the refineries have carried out feasibility studies and quite some, we have spent millions of dollars on those studies. And we are ready to take up all these upgradation projects, which will reduce furnace oil in some cases to almost zero, or reduce it, or at least enable all the refineries to meet Euro 5 specifications. But unless they come up with a new refinery policy, we should at least give us some protection, so nothing would happen. So we are still waiting for that. The salient features of proposed refining policy for the existing refineries is that there should be some sort of a tariff protection for petrol and diesel for a period of at least 6 years, which may be reviewed later on. And funds generated through the tariff protection shall be kept in a separate bank account to be maintained with National Bank of Pakistan by the respective refineries. These are at least part of the draft refinery. I don't know what's going to be the final shape of the refinery. And these deposits shall only be used for upgradation along with contributions by refineries from their own sources. The funds in this account shall be available as per established milestones agreed with OGRA. For existing refinery to be eligible for the fiscal incentives which we hope to get under the proposed policy, it must undertake to upgrade within 2 months after notification of the revised policy. OGRA will monitor the upgrade projects of respective refineries, and the project progress will be independently reported to OGRA. So it provides a lot of not only commitment from the refineries, but also it would ensure that the money is properly used, the protection, whatever the protection incentive or the form of whatever it may take, will be properly utilized not only and only for upgradation of the refineries. And the policy for the greenfield refinery, which was recently announced, so no new hydroskimming refineries shall be allowed. Only brand new, should not have been branded, only brand new deep conversion refineries shall be allowed. Refineries shall be allowed to sell minimum Euro 5 specifications petroleum products. And for a minimum of 300,000 barrels per day refinery, tariff protection of 7.5% on petrol and diesel for a period of 25 years, along with 20 years of income tax holiday. And for refinery having less than 300,000 barrels capacity, tariff protection of 7.5% on petrol and diesel for a period of 10 years. So it has been linked with the size of the refinery. I think they are very, very attractive, lucrative sort of incentives. And let's hope that we do projects, some foreign investment naturally in this case, to set up new refineries as well. But as they say, a bird in hand is better than 2 birds in the bush. So I think we need to focus first on the existing refineries. These are assets which we already have. So the focus should be, and the priority be to come up with policy which should enable the existing refineries to upgrade. Though we still hope, and we would be most happy to see some greenfield refinery also come up. In addition to these, all new deep conversion oil refinery projects shall be entitled for above benefits provided they achieve their financial close within 5 years. So they have this time available to them. So within 5 years, they have to reach the financial close. And exemption from levy of custom duties, levies, surcharge, etc., on all material, plant and equipment and also with exemption from certification by Engineering Development Board. In addition to the fiscal incentives, the investor may get declaration of the project under a special, if they get declaration that is located in a special economic zone, so they would be entitled to those kind of incentives as well. And if they get registration as a qualified investment under the Foreign Investment Promotion Act and claim the incentive, this basically would provide protection to the foreign investor. So my takeaway point is that we need a refinery policy for the existing refineries, the sooner the better. Otherwise, maybe we could still keep waiting for the day when we become more sufficient in our own refining. In the total investment of existing refineries, which we call the brownfield refineries, is in the range of $4.2 billion US dollars. I think we have already touched upon these points. The constraints we have at the ports, these are serious issues. And the next point is about pipeline. So we do have crude pipeline and product line all the way from Karachi to Parco refinery and Machake. And of course, there's a need to have a product pipeline from Machake onwards towards Peshawar. This is again a sad story of the energy sector. I think we, the Auto Group, took up this project maybe more than 20 years back. Somehow it could not materialize. And only last 2-3 years, there were two competing projects. One was being promoted by Interstate Gas Company, the government-held company, and the other was being promoted by FWO. 2-3 years have passed. In fact, Interstate Gas, they even had done the bidding and they selected the company also, some Chinese company, I believe. But none of the project took off. So this is again an unfortunate story because we badly need this pipeline from Machake onwards. This would not only reduce losses, but also adulteration, opportunities of adulteration, and basically the cross country pipelines is the most safe mode of transportation of oil. Opportunities for investment, as we already talked about, the current gap is maybe 9 million and may go up to 29 million tons in the year 2030. What is this? 35, yeah. We even had projections in another presentation up to 2046. So the gap is there and is growing. Conclusion. Pakistan to remain a strong market for crude and products, in spite of all this talk about renewables and solar and wind and everything. Of course, they have to be promoted. But I don't see fossil fuel going up in the air in the next at least 15-20 years. So the demand is going to go increase. And this is a challenge, diminishing furnace oil demand. Existing refineries need to upgrade, of course. We had presented a proposal to the Petroleum Division that till such time that the refineries are upgraded, at least they should look into the possibility of having some of the most efficient power plants run on furnace oil in the merit list, or maybe they have a separate merit list. And we have proved with facts and figures that overall, from country economics point of view, it would be better to run some efficient furnace oil power plants because that would enable the refineries to operate on throughput. So we would be, of course, furnace oil would be there, but then by making the refineries to run at full throughput, you would be reducing imports of high-speed diesel and motor gasoline and other fuels as well. Pipeline networks I've already mentioned, especially the need for upcountry. Port structures we have talked about. And the refinery policy for greenfield have already been approved. Existing refineries and business for decades are equally committed to undertake upgradation projects. So waiting for the refinery policy. That's it. Thank you very much, gentlemen. If there is any question? No question? Good. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I take this opportunity again. Thank you, sir, for an excellent presentation. the biggest takeaway for me is your comment on my last question that now your refinery can refine the local condensate. Second most pertinent question, I take this opportunity for you being on stage, is regarding if you notice that our import bill, as I've always talked, is increasing every day, but the import bill pertaining to the petroleum products is also increasing. And as per my outdated information, that our refineries are not capable to refine base oil above grade 2. And all the new engines, OEM recommendations are grade, grade 4, being use the synthetic oil in them. So what are the plans of the refinery sector to blend base oil, produce base oil in country for grade 4? Thank you.
To be honest, I'm not fully familiar with the aspects of your question when it comes to grade 4 and refining from base oil. Maybe some other gentleman from the refinery sector would like to answer that. Or we can discuss it over later on the sideline of the conference. And your other question was regarding condensate. Yeah, Aftab sir?
Actually, new refineries are different configuration.
Yeah.
So in Pakistan, it's not economical to have a new refinery, a new place with a grade 4 or 3. It's not anything from Pakistan.
Yeah.
Consumption is so low.
Yeah.
Only one refinery is mainly group 1.
Okay. So Aftab sir,
I'll just explain there is a difference between the fuel refinery and the lube refinery. So Pakistan has got all the fuel refineries except the national refinery, which has got the lube and the fuel. And the consumption of the fuel is sufficient for Pakistan. I do appreciate that we should go for the base oil 3 or base oil 4, which has a low sulfur, and also the requirement for the new vehicles. But that required a lot of investment. So the refineries, first phase is to have the fuel refineries with a total conversion, number 1. Number 2, the priority is to have the petrochem. If the refinery is converted, it will have an option for the petrochem. And the petrochem is the requirement of the future. That is the answer.
Okay, I hope your question has been answered by Aftab Saab. Anyway, coming to your first part of your question about condensate, as I mentioned early in the morning, that currently some of the producers are exporting condensate, and for which they have to cater for storage facilities at the port, and also probably not getting a good price for their product. So we have been in consultation or in discussions with the Ministry of Petroleum for more than last 6 months, because the production from the local fields in the north, in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Potawar, is a little bit going down. So we have no option but to operate at lower throughput. And we have been asking the ministry to divert this condensate, which is currently being exported to Attic Refinery. In principle, they have agreed. There have been some movement on formal approvals also, but finally it's stuck up somewhere, so I don't know. We are still waiting for their decision. So we would be willing to accept the condensate. Okay, ji.
Sunil, in the message, the respected minister said that Russian crude oil is on the way and it will reach in a week's or 2 weeks' time. So our refineries are well equipped to refine that Russian crude oil, because there were so many news in the market कि भाई ये तो इसका जो डीजल और पेट्रोल इसमें से एक्सट्रैक्शन है वो कम परसेंटेज है, बट द furnace oil extraction would be percentage would be more. So our refineries well equipped कि वो उसको refine कर सकें. आप I'll ask about the ARL also, because क्योंकि मुझे ये पता चला था कि ये NRL में पहले होगा. And the second question is कि अगर हो सकता है रिफाइन, तो ये वाली न्यूज़ इसमें कितनी सदाकत है कि उसका जो परसेंटेज ऑफ डीजल एंड जो मोटर गैसोलीन है वो लेसर है एज़ कम्पेयर टू जो कि हम करंटली जो क्रूड ऑयल हम इंपोर्ट करते हैं.
Thank you. As far as ARL is concerned, it's not feasible for us to process any imported crude for that matter, because being so far away from the port, the transportation cost adds up a lot. So it's currently not feasible for us. But I'm glad that PRL has taken the initiative, and the current cargo is 100,000 barrels, which is being imported from Russia. And I think the first ship will be reaching here maybe first week of June. So they have agreed to process it, and I believe that they would be blending it with some other Middle East crude. And Zaid Mir Saab is here, so maybe if you would like to add something more to it.
I mean, whatever the minister has said is effectively correct. The Russian crude is on its way. It will probably reach Pakistan first week of June, around first week of June. Now, your question regarding the yields out of that crude. Now, it's a heavy crude, so we know it's a heavy crude. And yes, I mean, you know, the production of furnace oil will be more than the normal crudes that we use. And effectively, yes, I mean, you know, the yields will be on the lower side. But, you know, you need to understand that it's all technical and commercial evaluation of the crude. It's all based on the technical and commercial evaluation of the crude. So there is a price that has been agreed by the government of Pakistan with the, it's a G2G basis. And effectively, all I can tell you is yes, I mean, the government has done the technical and commercial evaluation. And although the yields are different, but effectively, at the end of the day, it will be beneficial for the country.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khattak, for your well-rounded presentation, in which you have touched on a number of topics, including indigenous crude oil production, state refineries, investment in crude oil sector, refining policy, and of course, the grave issue of smuggled petroleum products in Pakistan. Now, the growth of E&P sector is indispensable for bridging the demand-supply gap. We have with us Mr. Imran Abbasi, MD PPL of Pakistan Petroleum, who will be talking on E&P opportunities and challenges. Let's put your hands together for Mr. Imran Abbasi.
Thank you. Thank you. Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank PIP for inviting me to share my views. I would like to start by saying that I've been in this E&P business for a very long time, and I do feel very passionately about it. Despite the challenges, I honestly believe that we can do a lot better in the country than what we are. I think we have the resources, we have the potential. Yes, we have the challenges, I'm not going to understate them, but the fact remains that we can do so much better. All right, here's just a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about. I will not really follow all the bullet points on my slides. That's not the way I normally present. But I would like to start off by saying what Dr. Musaddiq said this morning. I just want to reiterate what he said. He was talking about affordability. Many years ago, one of my mentors, when I was a young buck out of university, starting off in the oil patch, he told me, son, remember one thing, that the cheapest energy or oil or gas that you'll ever find is in your own country. And he said, the next cheapest is what you bring through the pipe. Everything else is humbug. He was an American, so those were his words. Now, humbug, I know, is a bit of an overstatement, but the fact remains, and I think it's true even today, that the cheapest and the most affordable energy that we can ever produce in the country is really going to be what we find ourselves by drilling. No shortcut to it. It's hard grunt work, but you find your resources through the drill bit. Secondly, we need to bring energy through the pipe. That's the best way to do it. As the Honorable Minister said, we are looking at various pipeline projects. And I think really, I'm not an expert in that area, I'm really an oil and E&P person. Transmission is an area we really need to focus on, particularly from overseas. We need to import energy. I know there are challenges, there are political challenges, economic challenges, etc. It's not my expertise to comment on them, and I will not. But that's something that I think the country as a whole should focus on. Let's talk of opportunities. I've worked in many countries of the world, but I can tell you one thing, that we've got a very capable human resource in this country. It's never fully appreciated. We've got the right people, the right skill set. Recently, there has been a bit of an exodus of bright people leaving the country. I think it's temporary, being an optimist by nature, but I do believe that we have got a very strong human resource base, which we need to capitalize on. Another important point I'd like to make is that Pakistan has got a very well-established service company infrastructure. Having worked in many parts of the world, there are many countries where you don't have basic facilities. There are places where you can't find decent logging companies, you can't find decent mud companies. I think we are quite fortunate we've got all of those in Pakistan. So that is something we are blessed with. So let's just thank ourselves that we have the infrastructure, we have the human resources. Before me, my learned colleague sitting in front of me talked about going into, expand our portfolio. Let's not stick to our traditional mature basin. We need to think out of the box. And I know the industry and the government has embraced it and we are looking at it. But I really believe that frontier and offshore is where we are going to find the big molecules, the large volumes that we are looking. Shallow, I believe, is the new frontier. I don't think we are focused enough on the shallow offshore. PPL is one of the companies which owns a license there, and we have firmed up some leads over there. We're quite excited about them. I think in a year and a bit, we will be thinking of penetrating those structures. The beauty about shallow offshore is that, it's relatively cheaper. As everybody knows how much kekra cost. The shallow well is going to be significantly lower. The other important thing is development cost is lower. The third point, which is important, is the time to market is lower. A typical deep water discovery in in Angola offshore, for example, or Equatorial Guinea, you're looking at least 10 years to monetization from discovery. So that's 10 years, 10 long years of spending money. We are looking for relatively quick wins. So that's where that's going to come from. The last bullet point that I'm going to talk very briefly about is, unconventional hydrocarbon resources. A lot has been said about it, and some of our companies have taken a lead in the country. The government is playing their role. Policies have come out. And I'm not going to go on about the volumes that I've quoted on my slide. There are numerous studies and the numbers can vary. But the fact remains that we do have a tight gas resource that needs to be exploited. We need to enable the environment. The government needs to provide an environment that we are able to do that. The service companies need to play a role so that we have economies of scale and we can actually develop these resources. But I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that it's a significant resource. 30 TCF is big. How many 30 TCF discoveries have we had in the last 10, 15, 20 years? None. So, we are talking significant impact to our energy scenario. The next evolution naturally will have to be shale oil, shale gas, but I'm not going to go much onto that because that's the next dimension. But, think about it, that's also significant volumes. A lot of countries struggle with shale oil, but it takes time, you have to persevere, you have to be resolute, eventually you'll get there. I'd like to talk about this slide. This is a slide I prepared when I went to Houston. And what I'm trying to point out here is that, our deltas, the two offshore deltas, and I don't want to steal your thunder, basically, but I do want to market these blocks a little bit more here. The Indus and Makran Basin is 280,000 square meter. And my learned colleague actually talked about being the second largest delta in the world. So what I did was I collected some information, which I shared with DGPC as well, just to tell you what the analog deltas around the world have produced and what kind of reserves they carry. So that's the slide. Now, interestingly, 2 out of the 3 deltas I've actually physically worked in. So I know these deltas quite well. So if you look at the volumes, Nile Delta is only 120,000 square kilometers. 350 wells, more than 350 wells have been drilled over there. And look at the resource they have, 11.2 billion barrels of reserves. Sorry, not resource, reserves. There's a difference. They are making 500,000 barrels of oil equivalent. That's just the Nile Delta. Niger Delta, offshore Nigeria, I worked in that area as well. 2 million barrels of production equivalent. But they've drilled 1,200 wells. Mahakam, offshore Indonesia, another place that I have had the privilege to work in. Only 165,000 square kilometers, over 2,000 wells drilled. Look at the reserves. And they're making 100,000 BOPDE. The volume is lower because it's primarily gas. That's why you don't see the larger numbers. So so my next question is, how many wells have we drilled in our offshore delta of 280 odd thousand kilometers? 14, 15? So really the message here is that we just haven't done enough. We really need to do a lot more. And I know what the challenge is. Investment is difficult to find. Our capacity to spend is limited. But to discount this delta, I think would not be wise. That is an area that we as a country need to focus on. Despite the challenges, I believe the potential is there. There are analogies around the world. And, with all due respect to my geologist brethren, no 2 deltas are the same. I mean, everybody would agree to that. But there are sufficient analogs in there that, we have something big out there. We just need to persevere and get after them. Dr. Saab referred to, most places have got, 2 to 3 plays. We've got 4. Yes, there's risk. Yes, we don't know what's going on in there. It's frontier, we have to explore. So all I want to say here is, and I think I've digressed enough, that we have potential in these deltas. We just haven't done enough. Right. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but just a couple of pointers. A lot of you are aware of them. I think we need to reintroduce a free float open area licensing policy. For example, if I find a block interesting, why do I have to wait for the next bidding round? Why can't Mr. DGPC say, Imran, you can have it today or tomorrow or in a week's time? Put it up for bid and I'll take it. Current practice is that you have to wait for the next bidding round. Government in their infinite wisdom has decided to do that. Maybe 5, 6, 7 years, I don't know how many years ago this was not the case, but this restriction was imposed. I think this is superfluous. It does not do anything to enhance investment activity or prospecting. The second point I'll briefly touch upon, I think we need to get together, all our NOCs and government, we need to get together and get involved in regional joint technical studies. I do believe some of this is going on, but what I'm really impressed is because PPL is actually one of the lead contractors in a venture in offshore Abu Dhabi. And what they've done in Abu Dhabi is they've actually done a blanket 3D over the entire region. And they share the data. And what that has done is that's enhanced the value of the block. They make them more marketable. Now I do realize there's a resource crunch. It'll probably cost a fair bit of money to do something like that, but it's not prohibitive. It's something that the government and the operators, maybe we could partner, do something together and try to do something like that. Equity sharing, I think I'm not going to talk much about it. The last point is also quite interesting. As we have been talking about that, we are off the peak. Most of our facilities are running underutilized. They are below capacity. I know of a number of fields which are not even at half their nameplate capacity. So why don't we use some of that idle infrastructure? Now I know recently it has been done, but some of the people in this room know it was a painful exercise. Why is it so difficult that I can't go to company XYZ and buy their amine unit. Why is it so difficult? Why should I go and spend foreign exchange and go through a major design process and a 12 to 14 or 18 months lead time and import an amine unit from abroad? Why can't I pick one which is lying idle 50 kilometers from my facility? For some reason, this is an impediment. This is a problem that our country has. Our regulators need to really look into it. It just serves no purpose. I see no advantage of why the hurdles have been placed. Okay, so it's not all fun and games. I did sound a little bit upbeat. So we have challenges. Absolutely, we have challenges. I'm not going to overstate them, but the fact is that most companies are impaired with liquidity. My company in particular, we are sitting on a fair bit of what I call receivables, and I'm not going to dwell upon why that is the case, but everybody's aware of that. PPL in particular, 60% of our revenue base is coming from gas, so you can do the maths, so it does hurt us. The other problem that we have is that when the gas price goes up and our production volume goes up, we actually get hurt, and I'll tell you why. So our revenue goes up, our invoicing is done on that revenue, and we get hit for taxes, the statutory payments on that revenue. Nobody gives a damn how much I'm collecting. Nobody. So what happens is that even though I'm producing more gas, my bottom line is improving, my P&L is looking spectacular, but my money is going down, my cash flow, my free cash flow is not there. And I can tell you the last few quarters, I've been making statutory payments to the government out of my reserves because I'm just not collecting enough. First time in the history, I think most of the E&P companies this year are coming up with contingent budget. So have I. Basically what I'm saying is this is what I will absolutely do, and this is what I will only do if I have the liquidity, because I can't count on liquidity coming to me. Even though I keep producing, I keep churning out a spectacular P&L to my shareholders, but my free cash flow is just not there. It impairs my ability to invest in any infrastructure, any development, any production enhancement activities. I have to pick and choose. So the first point, again, I know I said I won't overstate it, everybody knows it, but it is critical that something is done about it. It is not sustainable, it's going to sink the companies. Second point is about shrinking domestic resources. We've talked about that, and in fact what I will do is I'll go straight away to the next slide. And some of you have actually seen this, but it's quite interesting because it tells you that the big discoveries happened in the 50s and 60s, the Maris and the Suis. So if you look at this plot, the blues are the exploratory wells, green are the reserves, and red are the discoveries. So you can see as we get closer to today, we are drilling exploratory wells. It's not that the E&P companies are idle. You know, there has been a liquidity problem, so you can see that there's a drop in exploration activity towards the end. But we are still drilling a lot more than what we were drilling in the past, and we are still having discoveries. But look at the green bars. The green bars tell you that the discoveries are what I call cats and mice. People have heard me use this word. They're not significant. You know, they're only good for the newspaper. You put down that, you know, I flowed 10 million scuffs of gas, but for how long? I call them cats and mice. They make no impact to the bottom line. Hence, we need to move away from the low cost, if you are going to, low cost mature basins, if you're going to make a difference to our reserve replacement ratio. I'll go back to the previous slide. I know I'm not very organized here, but you know, every E&P company wants to have a reserve replacement ratio of 100%. What you produce a year is what you should replace, otherwise you don't have a sustainable business. Common sense. You don't have to go to Harvard Business School to understand that. What are we running in the country? And I have confirmed this number that most of our E&P companies are running 30 to 40% reserve replacement over the last 5 years, if you look at that. There may be some aberrations here and there, but generally that's the case. Average discovery in the past 5 years has been 32 BCF. Look at the next bullet point. Current production is 3.5 BCF. So what have we replaced? 10 days of production? So that's the point I'm making, that if we are going to improve our reserve replacement ratio and make our businesses sustainable, we need multi-TCF discoveries. And these multi-TCF discoveries are not going to come from the mature basin. They will not come from the mature, I can guarantee you that. They will come from the frontier, or they'll come from the offshore. And that's the area we must focus on. And I do realize it's a tall order, big money is involved, there's risk, but we don't have a choice. That's where we have to go to. Finally, just a parting thought. I just said I'll wind everybody up before I leave. I know this is an energy conference, I shouldn't be talking about these things, but I will. Everybody knows about the Paris Agreement. So the Paris Agreement states, and I've summarized it, it's not 100% accurate, but that's the gist of it. Global warming to be limited to 1.5 degrees per Celsius, global emissions to be reduced by 45% by 2030, and here's the killer, net zero by 2050. So a lot of people in my previous companies, and perhaps even here, would argue that you can't get to 2050 in net zero. Interestingly enough, there was a study done in 2021 by the International Energy Agency, and I'll admit this is the second time I'm quoting it. I quoted this study in an article I edited 2 years ago for Journal of Petroleum Technology. I mentioned it. I'll mention it again. IEA presented a new roadmap as to how we can get to 2050. It had some very radical statements in there, if I may say that. Very, very radical. They said, yes, we can do it, but the kicker is that bullet point. They said that all greenfield developments in the oil and gas sector should be stopped forthwith. Yes, you can do your optimization, but no new greenfield developments either offshore or on land or deep water. It's quite interesting because, I mean, that's still going on. Which begs the question, are we ever going to make net zero to 2050? So I just wanted to throw this out as a parting thought, but the final point is what I want to make is that it is inevitable that we as E&P company, as fossil fuel companies have to transform. We must transform. This is not going to go on forever. We need to be sensible, we need to be responsible. That's all I have actually. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Good.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Umar Tahir from Hunting. One question, you have very rightfully pictured, even though we are ambitious, we have dreams, but at the end we need the liquidity money to expand our even portfolio.
Right.
So one question or projects I'm involved with is lithium extraction globally. Some of the wells which are being drilled, they are serving two purposes, geothermal, but no one is focused on electricity or gas or oil. They're all running after lithium at the moment in many pockets of the world. So I've been reading some potential in Balochistan for lithium, and we have done some agreements with China as well. Not on the mining side, but I want to throw this thought to E&P companies, then instead of doing 4 or 5 exploratory wells, if we do a well or two, if there is lithium, then either it's digitalization or EVs, E&P companies, car companies, Teslas, Warren Buffett. So everyone is signing agreements years in advance if you have a potential of lithium or if you can produce lithium. So is that something PPL or any of the E&P companies?
Okay, I can just add to that. So interestingly, about 3, 4, 5 months ago, I got quite interested in lithium after I read an article in a magazine about how the EV industry is evolving, and basically saying that there's not enough lithium in the world to actually reach the EV targets that are being projected. That was quite an interesting observation, that we are talking about batteries when you don't even have the lithium, the base for the batteries. So either we have a technology breakthrough or the EV projections are not going to happen, or we need to find more lithium resources. So I got interested in it, and I did a very quick pilot study within PPL, and we have found there are 2 areas where there are potential lithium resources. I haven't gone much further than that. I can tell you one is in Balochistan, the other one is in Gilgit-Baltistan. Now there are 2 different kinds of, so please bear with me, I'm not an expert in mining. the one in Gilgit-Baltistan is basically like an ore. So that has a different way of extraction, whereas the one in Balochistan is what they call a lithium brine. So these are like volcanoes which are actually bubbling lithium-rich water. So that's all I know right now, but it's quite interesting that I don't know what the magnitude of these resources are. I have absolutely no idea. That's something that I'd be very interested in, and I think we as an industry should look at.
Thank you, sir. I'll get in touch with you after you get down, because some of the wells I'm currently involved with, we are constructing those wells in US for lithium, for this brine, the Balochistan one.
Okay.
So I'll share some notes.
Yeah, okay.
So thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abbasi, for a very well-rounded presentation. Someone said that we never know the worth of water till the wealth is dry. Natural gas industry is today at the crossroads. The demand for supply and demand is rising, which calls, of course, for use of alternative resources. We are honored to have Managing Director, Swiss-Southern Gas Company, Mr. Imran Maniar, who will talk on the subject of addressing the growing natural gas shortage. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Imran Maniar.
Assalamu alaikum, hello everybody. I think I'm like, I guess the last speaker, everybody's hungry, so I'll try to keep this at a minimum and just go through what I think are the essential slides rather than really focus. One thing I do want to stress is there's been a lot of doom and gloom in these presentations, and I understand everybody has problems, and we are obviously one of the companies that has a problem, is probably causing problems for a lot of the people sitting here. So I'm very mindful of that, and I think I don't want to stress on actually the problems, and hopefully some of the things that we have done in the 2 years that I've been here. And I think having never worked in Pakistan ever before, I mean, this is my first time that I did, I think we've been fortunate, very blessed that we've actually turned a public, state-owned enterprise around. I mean, from the kind of losses that we have to actually come to a profit has been a significant milestone for us. So I think we are trying to build on those things, and like I said, I'll point on a few things that we've done. And so really, just a few slides. I'll go through this very quickly. I think obviously with the last pandemic, the ongoing war issues, obviously it is important that we develop our own resources, whether it's through some of the things that I think Imran Abbasi mentioned. I think some of the stuff that the Minister Saab mentioned this morning, both offshore and some conventional out-of-the-box solutions. So this is a graph that you may have or may not have seen. I think it just shows the demand and supply. And I think what I really wanted to stress, it really shows that the demand keeps growing and our supply keeps going down on natural gas. But it's very important to me that this is because that we have a artificially low price of gas. I think if we actually justify the price of gas in this country, that orange bar would go down very, very significantly. And I think it's just that we basically are giving gas for free, and that's the reason that why we have this demand. So if we try to bring this gas price significantly up, it would not only help us, but it would also help a lot of the E&P companies that are sitting here, because I think that's the only way that we'll be able to justify further drilling. This is another graph, basically shows the downward trend of domestic gas production. On the right, we actually have the LNG, and it's interesting to note that between 15 and 21, we actually increased over time, except for in the last year because of the spot prices going up as rapidly as they did. We actually saw a decrease in LNG. Obviously, our capability of buying natural gas in the spot market has evaporated completely because of the lack of foreign exchange in the country. So just a very brief here. I'll skip on this. There's really nothing here. Let me go. So what we've tried to do, right? So I mean, we have a myriad of problems. We had basically, we serve in Sindh and Balochistan. We've got massive issues in Balochistan, obviously, because of collection, ability to pay. And then obviously, a lot of our unaccounted gases are in Sindh. And Sindh we've been able to control. Unfortunately, in Balochistan, it's been very difficult. So the only way I feel, and I mean our senior management felt, that we could turn the company around, we went to non-conventional things. We try to do things which with SSGC has never done in the past, right? So that is thinking outside the box. We established a new entity for that very purpose. We've looked at things that we've never looked at before, like getting more into the E&P business, looking at basically blending through reducing GCV in the gas, increasing biogas and biomethane sales. We've done some power generation at our own sites. We've looked at hydrogen production. We've looked at coal to gas and coal to liquid, things which are very unconventional to our business model. And I really feel that if we follow through on this, I mean, we can significantly increase not only the footprint of the company, but also the existence and the future of the company. So I think our traditional business, I think, will continue. I think really the goal is to service the people. I think the Minister Saab said this morning that one of the goals is to be able to afford affordability, and we fall right in the middle of it. We are one of those companies that provide basically gas at a subsidized rate to 95% of the people in this country, which I mean is a staggering number, but that is a fact. With the dollar-rupee difference now, we are actually subsidizing industry too, right? So I mean, we are buying new gas today. All the E&P people are sitting over here. We are buying new gas at $6.25 and buying in dollars and selling it in rupees at about 600-700 rupees, which is an unsustainable model going forward, right? So I mean, obviously, so our core business, I call it very sick right now, but prices have to come. If we are not able to bring the prices up, a lot of the people that did the E&P presentations will eventually shut down over here. So I think it's very important, not only that we support the E&P companies, we are able to find ways to increase. And I'll come to the thing. I really think that getting out of this current model of circular debt, I think it's so important that we actually open up the markets, we allow, and I think the policy, the 2012 policy allows E&P companies to do this, that they are able to sell their gas directly. We open the market up, we are able to buy gas at a higher price, and we're able to sell it at a negotiated higher price. So that will bring investments into the sector, it will actually save the sector, and you will actually be able to not be dependent on foreign resource to be able to bring product from outside. So this is just some of the things that we are working on. I think I'll just highlight this biofuels thing that I think because there's a tremendous potential. I mean, we've started working on this. I think we've got 3 or 4 people that we're trying to do a public-private partnership. And the volume is not that much, but I really think for us, I mean, it's just, I think maybe 10 MMCF, but I think it's an area that we are focusing on. We made a lot of headway in it. And I think going forward that we'll be able to develop this. So I won't go into the details much because of lack of time, but just kind of highlighting it right here. Some of the things we just wanted to point out the things that we've looked at. This is basically production of the biomass for sugar, for bananas, for rice, and for municipal waste. Municipal waste is something that I've worked actually in the US quite a bit. I think there's a lot of potential to generate energy out of it. But I think we're not just looking at animal waste, we're looking at a lot of plant waste also. On the right, we've actually looked at the statutory provisions currently. So there are policies that support some of these things. It's just that we're able to execute on them, and we need to move forward on them. So that's just a macro level kind of where we are on it. Coal to gas, this is also something I think eventually that given that the other resources are depleting, I think if we stay onshore and if we try to look at stuff, I mean the major thing here is for us to be able to bring this volume at the $6 or $7 per MMBTU. I think that's the goal. I think there are 2 things in here, obviously, to be able to make diesel out of this, and then obviously to make methane out of it. So so we're working with 2 different companies on this framework. When I really feel that at some point, given our reserves, that's something we have to use to produce gas. This is something that you've probably seen at the ministry level. We really think that there is a lot of potential really in working on infrastructure and looking at ways to save energy. And I think a lot of it would be price driven also, right? I really feel that today that we spend, gas heaters, for example, are open 24 hours because the price of gas is so low. So I think we have to put systems where the geysers are a lot more efficient. There are thermostats on it, so which controls the time that they are on, and then the wastage that happens on and through stoves and through heaters and through space heating, that needs to be prevented. And then we've just kind of gone through different sectors. Because we work with pretty much all the sectors in the country, we feel that there are a lot of inefficiencies within each sector, and I think we've highlighted kind of some of the things where we feel the savings can be done. Again, I'm not going to get into a lot of details here, but just kind of an overview. For wind and solar, I think for us, obviously there's a framework. We're not really using a whole lot here right now. I think us as a SSGC, as a company, has not really done as much in this sector either, but I think for us, that's an area that we probably need to do more work in. And this just kind of is an overview in terms of where the cost of energy is. Obviously, natural gas is the cheapest if you look at the bottom right, and that's the natural gas that's domestically produced. Obviously, if you put RLNG, it's more pricey, so that's why coal is a substitute that we've suggested. And then we've kind of highlighted here how the cost of wind and solar has gone down over time. Okay. Now then I'm going to talk about, these are some of the things that I want to talk about. I really think that back in 2006, when we had a lot of natural gas and not enough electricity, we had allowed a lot of industry to set up their own captive power plants and to convert the gas into electricity. Now we are at the opposite end of the spectrum. We actually have more electricity available and not enough natural gas. And there are a lot of inefficient captive power plants where to give you an example, we supply about 350 MMCF of gas in our franchise. Out of that, 200 goes to captive power plants. So they are able to produce electricity at 14 rupees a unit. If you buy from K Electric in Karachi, for example, you're paying 42 rupees. So the people who put captive power plants, the bigger people, it's about 800 out of the 4,500 industries, can produce electricity at 1/3 the price of people that are buying it. So what it's doing in Karachi especially is the smaller people are going out of business. They cannot compete anymore. The cost of our electricity has gone to a point where it's uncompetitive for the smaller people. So I really think as a policy, we need to, I think ECC has passed, I think a few weeks ago, where this NOC that was given 17 years ago will be pulled back. And eventually where we have to move in the direction is that we have to take the ability of captive power back, and we really need to use that gas for process only. Because all you're really doing in captive power plants is reducing the cost. You're benefiting about 800 people in the country at the expense of not only industry but also domestic people, because the cost of electricity is outrageous right now. So I think that's one of the things that we want to. Little bit about UFG. I think a lot of you hear about it. I think a lot of people line losses that we call in our terms. We worked very, very hard on this in the last 2 years. And when I came in between Sindh and Karachi, our UFG was at 15%. And in Balochistan, it was obviously very high. But we really focused on Karachi, which is 70% of our total, Sindh, which is 20%. And we've been able to bring the Karachi number down to 8%, which for us has been a milestone. In Sindh, we are at a little over 10%. We really feel we can bring that number down too. But even in spite of that, because the natural gas volumes are going down, percentage-wise, we haven't made as much headway. Our issue continues to be Balochistan. I mean, our line losses are over 50%, and we've done everything that we can, but policy-wise, major changes need to be made. It's something people need to realize, that it's not just a loss. There's a lot of tampering there, that we need to be able to make a policy to where affordability becomes better for people in Balochistan. I mean, in winter time, when somebody is making 25,000 rupees and their gas bill comes at 50,000, it's almost impossible for them to pay and expect them to pay. So so we do serve a socio-economics agenda there, and I think being a publicly listed company, it goes against everything that I've ever understood growing up in the capital market. So we are in a listed public company, yet we are serving people on a socio-economic agenda. So that's very, very tough. So I think our goal really, we will do a lot more in Karachi and Sindh, and we hope to keep that in single digits, but we will need help going into Balochistan in forming a policy that would help bring the line losses down. I think in terms of import, I think a lot of that has been talked about in the E&P presentations. I really think that we need to develop resources. Like I said, the markets need to be opened. On our end, we've done a lot of work. We've identified almost 200 MMCF of gas, which we really feel if the policy framework is there, we can bring that to market within a year. And we can actually, in terms of just dollars, I mean, today, our long-term contract at Qatar, each cargo that's coming in is $40 million, right? So that's $500 million a year for each cargo. We really feel that if the policy framework is there, we can bring a savings of $1 billion every year in terms of the work that we've done. So, and I think it's an important step, and we're working very hard to try to bring that policy framework to be able to open it, and we really feel that we should be able to achieve that if we get the support. And I think obviously a lot has been talked about IP and TAPI, and I won't really go into it, but I think the only thing I would say that people need to realize that even if we get TAPI gas, it's not going to be at $4. It'll be somewhere closer to our LNG price. So the domestic price structure will get changed even if we bring that pricing in. I think one other thing is, I think at some point, and we are again working on this, I really feel that as our longer term contracts on these FSRU-based RLNG are expiring, we do need to work on building a land-based terminal and a land-based storage. I think for each of these 15-year contracts, maybe they were good at that time, but we are going to pay $1.2 billion for each one of these FSRUs. And at the end of the 15 years, they'll sail away. So we have absolutely nothing to show for it. So I think going forward, we do need to build a land-based storage terminal. I think if LNG does need to come in the country, and we need to build in storage for at least starting out, at least a week's worth of gas storage at Port Qasim or at one of the ports. I think that's basically in a nutshell. I think I'll just summarize it. I think for us, very important that we think of alternative ways to develop our own natural sources. For us, that includes getting the unallocated gas wells that are shut down to bring them back to life, get the correct GCV gas to domestic and industrial customers, work on biomethane, biofuels that we already are, coal to gas, hydrogen, etc. And to be able to have an alternate way of really making a path for our company to go forward. Our core business will exist. I think the E&P policies need to be changed to facilitate people to be able to drill and to be able to get a better pricing and to be able to get out of the circular debt. I think everybody that's, especially on the E&P that's sitting here, that will second this. I think it's high time that we address this. Pricing needs to be revised on the gas so that we have the ability to pay. So every time these gentlemen call me, I'm not just telling them how longer it will be before I pay them. So I do want to pay them, but when I don't have the ability to pay, it makes it difficult. So I think in a nutshell, those are the things I wanted to highlight. Happy to take any questions if you have any. Thank you. I think everybody's hungry, sorry, so. Okay, sure. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mania, for your very insightful presentation. With this, we come to the last presentation of this conference, and I would request Mr. Kashif Siddiqui, CEO Parco Pearl Gas, to speak on the topic of future of LPG in Pakistan and policy reforms needed. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Kashif Siddiqui.
Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum to everybody. I've been requested by Shahryar to cut my presentation short because of the time, and I don't want to be between you and the lunch. So I will try to go through with the presentation with some important messages, skipping some of the slides, but I'm available if anybody wants to have some more details. Yes, we have been hearing about this natural gas depletion, so don't want to go into the details, but this graph is showing, and it is, mind you, it is only for SNGPL, where we are seeing that this, after 2023, there would be more than 1.3 BCF of shortage, which means that if even we bring in all the LNG, even then we cannot satisfy our demand, because our LNG infrastructure is to carry about 1.2 BCFD. Which means that if we have to make a choice after 2023, whether we want to give whatever available natural gas is, whether to give it to the domestic sector, to the industry, to the fertilizer, or other value-added sectors. And if we make a logical decision to basically divert gas where it makes more of a sense, then it means that the current 500 MMCFD being provided to the domestic sector probably would be required to be catered by LPG. And 1 MMCFD is equivalent to 22 tons of LPG every day, which means for 500 MMCFD of current natural gas demand, is requiring to be catered by 11,000 tons of LPG every day, and our current market is only 4,500 tons, which is almost tripling the market in the next 2-3 years' time. If you see this graph, this is showing how the LPG growth in this country was. And in year 2016, most of the earlier time was like a stagnant one. This is the time when we stopped giving gas to CNG sector, and most of the auto vehicles were converted to LPG in 2016. Again, the graph remained a bit static, and then there is a big blip last year, and we increased our market size from 1.2 BCF phone call, it will not serve the purpose. However, that is why I am saying that we require very serious investments in this business, and only the serious market players can invest into such sort of distribution system. So I agree with you. Thank you, Ji.
Thank you, Mr. Kashif Siddiqui, for your insightful presentation. With this, we come to the end of the conference presentations. And now for the souvenir distribution ceremony, I would like to request Chairman, PIP, Mr. Shahid Mahmood Khan back to the stage. And we will call all the speakers one by one to receive the souvenirs from the Chairman, PIP. We'll start with Mirza Faizan Ahmed, Assistant Professor, NED, UET, to please next we have Chairman OGRA, Mr. Masroor Ahmed, if he's here. Mr. Masroor is okay. Mr. Masroor has just left. So we have next in line is Dr. Syed Nazir Abbas Zaidi, Secretary General, OCAC, to please take his souvenir. Then Dr. Fayaz Ahmed Chaudhry, sir, kindly receive your souvenir from the Chairman PIP. Mr. Farooq Zagir, Executive Director, OGDCL, sir, please receive your souvenir. Mr. Kashif Ali, Directorate General Petroleum Concessions, if you are here, would you please collect your souvenir from the Chairman? Mr. Adil Khatak, CEO Atak Refinery, if you can please receive your souvenir from the Chairman. Next is Mr. Imran Abbasi, MD PPL. He will receive his souvenir from the Chairman. I would request Imran Manyar Sahab, MD Swiss and Gas Company, to receive his souvenir from the Chairman. And I will request now Mr. Kashif Siddiqui, our last speaker of the day, CEO Parco, to receive his souvenir from the Chairman. Okay. This is a souvenir from me, yours truly. I would request the Chairman, PIP, for his vote of thanks of the conference.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for attending this conference, and your attendance has made it really a very valuable conference for us. And thank you very much for your patience, for even to the extended time. Thank you very much.
I will also request Mr. Shahriar Umar for his vote of thanks. Mr. Umar.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all very much for coming. for taking your valuable time out. A lot of people are here from Karachi and as well as other cities. I'd like to thank all of the speakers for their valuable contributions. Some very thought-provoking presentations here, and we look forward to engaging with all the stakeholders to work on some of these issues so that we can progress and move forward and build a much stronger energy future for Pakistan. So thank you all again very much, and please proceed to lunch. Thank you.